Hello and welcome to the All of Us podcast. I am your host, Nathaniel Tavarez, keynote speaker and school shooting survivor. This show is about more than just telling stories of survival. It's about bringing together real stories, real people from every corner of our nation: parents, students, community leaders, mental health professionals, lawmakers, faith leaders, and those who've experienced the reality of gun violence firsthand, all to create real change. Here, we go beyond the headlines. We talk about the human side, the struggles, the hopes, and the ideas that can move us forward. Our mission is simple but urgent: to start the conversations that explore real solutions for end gun violence in schools and communities across America, and to give listeners the tools and inspiration to be part of that change. Each conversation you hear is different, but together they form a bigger picture, a movement where all of us have a role to play in creating safer spaces for the next generation all across the United States. Today, we are going back to the very beginning of my story that really led to my mission today. To help share it, I've invited Melissa, a survivor of domestic violence and an advocate of change herself, to interview me so you can get an understanding of why this mission is so deeply personal and why I believe this podcast can make a difference. Now, Melissa, she is the podcast host of Dear Battered World. She has also authored her second book, Your Destiny Determines Your Warfare, which was published in August of 2025, and a co-author of Dear Superwoman, published in 2023. She has been in the medical field since 2009 and is now making her transition into a powerhouse advocate for change in the domestic violence cause. She has recently been featured in Bookpreneur magazine and is on the road to discovering so many more possibilities and making her great change within this battered world. I now introduce to you your podcast interviewer, Melissa Lujan.
Hi, everyone. Nathaniel, thank you for allowing me to interview you today on this amazing podcast that you have, the All of Us podcast. That's a great title.
Correct.
So why the title of All of Us podcast?
So I am a huge overthinker, as you've seen throughout our preparation for this, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm constantly thinking, like, what type of names per se could make the biggest impact, right? We have so many names throughout the world of different podcasts, books, movies, etc. And so I'm always thinking, like, what one title can really capture an audience, pull them in to the point where they're like, I want to know more about what this title brings, what's behind that title. And so this is where I got into analyzing, like, my mission is going nationwide, right? We have so many things and situations that rise all throughout America where gun violence is a significant tragedy. And so we've got to understand that this is a nationwide problem. So that's one piece that I integrated into the creation of this name. And I also realized every time I'm trying to gather more data, whether it's through research papers or speaking to different people, I realize that I'm always talking to people from various backgrounds, whether they be just your average student or a parent, guardian, all the way up to policymakers, mental health professionals, etc. The list goes on.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that it's going to take all of us to make this change that we need to see in order to reduce and one day end gun violence. And as soon as that thought popped into my head, I realized the Lord told me that that's what my title needs to be, All of Us.
That's good. That's awesome. So, Nathaniel, I guess we need to take it back a little bit. I'm going to go a little backwards here because a lot of people our viewers are going to want to know straight to the point, like, What got you here to this moment? So why this All of Us podcast? Why is your passion gun violence? I mean, why is this your topic? Is it going to be your only topic on this podcast? Or are you going to do various discussions? What is your main focus and why?
So, this podcast, the intention of it is to continue those conversations that I'm having with various stakeholders, whether it be students, parents, lawmakers, etc. I want this podcast to capture all of those conversations to where our viewers can see what exactly is going into all of the action that we're taking outside of this podcast, right? So we want to see and gain insight from various people of all backgrounds and professions in order to create the most clear and concise plan, which I call like the multi-factor approach, in order to solve the problem that we're seeing across the nation. So what exactly started and ignited this mission inside of me was the fact that way back January 14th of 2014, I was actually injured in a school shooting. One of my fellow classmates, he had taken a 20 gauge sawed-off shotgun into the school gym and fired 3 random shots, bird shots in fact, and I was approximately 10 feet or less away from the shooter. First shot hit the ground, ricocheted, sideswiped me. The second one went up into the crowd and hit one of my fellow classmates. And then the third one hit me straight on. And so much more context that goes into that. But being that I'm here today to even do a podcast like this just proves the fact that I'm here to tell a story. And that's where that mission ignited.
We're both Roswell, New Mexico natives. This happened in Roswell, New Mexico, correct?
Exactly. I was in 7th grade at the time at Berrendo Middle School. And the first morning that we were actually returning back from winter break, there was a water pipe that busted. So they canceled school the Monday we were scheduled to return. Then come Tuesday, January 14th, this is when the weather was still kind of wild, but we were able to return to school. And the staff had directed all of us straight into the big gym, which was quite different compared to your average day, right? We were usually expected to go straight to your first period classroom. And as directed, we went straight into the gym. We were about, I'd say, a good 7 minutes before the first bell for us to go to class. And that's when the shooter walked in carrying the bag with the gun inside of it. He had dropped the bag center court, and then that's when he proceeded to fire the 3 shots.
Do you know why this young man did what he did? Do you know why he'd take a gun that day to school?
Whenever I had first woken up in the hospital, that is one of the many questions that I had.
Like he wasn't after you,
Right.
you weren't the target,
Exactly.
not the intended target.
Yeah, so like why in the world would a 12-year-old kid want to injure somebody with a gun? Or rather, if we're putting it in realistic terms, why are they out to kill? What in the world is the motive behind that? And so whenever we got to about 4 months post-incident, that's where we actually figured out what the motive was during the court hearing whenever he was being sentenced. Which that's when we found out that his plan that was actually written inside of a journal was to take that 20 gauge shotgun into his first period class. And there was one specific person he was targeting. And this person was in fact somebody who was bullying him. He had claimed that he had reported this to family members, school personnel, etc. Yet nobody did anything about it. So he felt the need to take it into his own hands. So the plan was to take that gun into his first period class, shoot XYZ until they died and suffered, like verbatim, straight out of the journal. And indeed, it was a person that most people would expect, because this was a person that often bullied many people across the school, as opposed to just that one person. But the shocking part was, of course, when it came to who he unintentionally shot, right, which was myself and another student.
But why? Like, why not wait for that kid? Why shoot two innocent fellow students that had nothing to do with his hate or whatever it was, his revenge towards that particular student? Why you guys? Why didn't he wait? Did he feel like he wasn't gonna be able to shoot that other kid? So let's just send a message? Is that what happened?
You are right on the point right there. Send a message. After we went through and gathered all of the information through the investigation, they had come to realize that that day, of course, since we didn't go straight to our first period class, his panic was like, okay, I've got to carry out my plan as quickly as possible because one, I'm already at school with a gun. Two, if I get caught, of course I'm going to get in trouble. Three, I've got to do it as quickly as possible in order to get my message across that I'm sick of being bullied and nobody else doing anything about it. His thing was let everybody know I'm tired of it. Which once he got to the gym and started firing rounds, he lost complete control of the gun because of the fact that he had to saw the end of it off, like the stock, in order to fit it into the bag.
Mm.
And so the very first shot, the gun was of course flying everywhere. And he noted and mentioned the fact in the court hearing, like it wasn't his intention to shoot just randomly and injure random people. His target
Mm-hmm.
was the person that they said he was initially targeting, and it was not his intention to hurt anybody else but that one person.
Got you. Okay. Nathaniel, whenever you were shot, did you know that you had been shot?
Interestingly enough, I had no clue as to what actually was happening in or around me. And I say it
Mm-hmm.
like that because as soon as it happened, well, actually, let me give you some pre context right before that moment. The pre context is the fact that I was on the very bottom bleacher, right? I'm turned around facing my group of friends. We're having these conversations, talking about the great experiences we had over that winter break. And whenever the first shot rang off, that's when my entire world went literally black. Back whenever the TV screens had no like TV service, you had the
Yeah.
pixelated white and black dots everywhere.
Yeah.
That's what it looked
Yes.
like to me. So that's all I seen and fell straight to the ground. All I could hear was people screaming, trampling over me, and the loud echo of those gunshots that just went off. And again, at the
Mm-hmm.
time, I had no clue as to what was going on. And so my idea, as my brain was trying to process this, was, oh my goodness, the school just blew up. There are a lot of people hurt, and I need to go help them. Like, how can I get up even though I can't see anything, but feel around to make sure I'm at least helping somebody? And that's when a teacher had actually come up to me and she laid me back down and was like, everything's going to be okay, Nathaniel. You're going to be fine. Your mama's not here, but I'm going to be your mama for now. Just all of these really awesome, like, things that were actually calming my nerves. And as I was hearing her say this, all I could think was, okay, did I just fall down and hit my head? And now these crazy thoughts are running through my head. Like, dang,
Mm-hmm.
it's our first day back to school. And now I'm going to have to go back home because I just knocked myself out. And then I felt this sudden sharp pain. And granted, all these different things that are currently going on around me, this sudden sharp pain I felt was a textbook in my backpack that was poking me. And so the only words that came out of my mouth, interestingly enough, was take off my backpack because I was like, this book is literally stabbing me and I don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was at that moment that I actually went unconscious.
So you were unconscious at this point.
Right.
So were you unconscious or did you pass away? I mean, were you alive at this point or just unconscious?
So my brain had the interpretation that I went unconscious and that was just my blackout point. But the teacher who was helping to calm me down and whatnot, a few months had passed. She had told me that that was the exact moment I had died. Blood was literally everywhere, all over her, myself, all over the floor.
Mm.
At this point, I had lost approximately 6 to 7 units of blood in my body. And granted, we only have 10, right? Heart stopped, no rhythm, wasn't breathing, gone in the sense of what we consider worldly death. I mean, this was something that in her brain, she was thinking, oh my goodness, this kid is gone. They couldn't identify me either. So her thing was trying to, like, without, of course, injuring me more, with her hand, she was having to scoop the blood out of my mouth so I wouldn't choke on it or swallow my tongue because it looked at one point before she noticed I no longer had a pulse that I was almost seizing in a sense. My body was just going into shock. She was scooping blood out of my mouth, trying to put pressure on majority of the places I was bleeding, but I was bleeding everywhere, so she couldn't tell where to put pressure. I mean, really just doing everything she could in order to keep
Mhm.
me alive until first responders were cleared to enter.
Got you. So then during this time, you didn't know obviously you were deceased, but during this, did you experience any out of body moments? Did you experience what we as Christians like to call heaven? Anything that you can remember that we would all say and assume is supernatural?
Right. It's hard to explain because our brains are so powerful and
Mm-hmm.
our brain power alone is magnificent. And then you top that with the power of God, and that's just like an entirely new
Mm-hmm.
creation per se.
Yeah.
So my experience after what I thought the blackout was a lot of dream like elements. And before this, mind you, I was very prone to nightmares. Like in the real world, back at home, pre incident, I was always having nightmares. And so that was a common thing for me. But thankfully, after this blackout or after my heart stopped, I just
Death.
entered
Yeah.
this world of complete dreamlike state. I was having so many dreams about so many supernatural elements. And it's almost like I was in this world right between the physical world and the spiritual world. And I
Mm.
say that just because of the context of like what some of my dreams were about, which we can go into that a little further if you'd like.
Yeah, no, actually, we want to know that now. I mean, I'm sure your viewers would love to know that. The whole world is curious about death. Did you feel a sense of peace? You said you had nightmares. Is it fair to say that you obviously weren't dreaming, you were used to nightmares, but right now, did you feel a sense of peace? I don't want to add words to your mouth. Was it a peace you felt? And can you tell us at least two important dreams or visions or experiences you were feeling the in between this life and the next?
Oh, yeah. So, out of the many dreams that I had, it was almost like the dreams were shifting the location of where I was at constantly. I mean, I was in
Mm.
so many places throughout that duration that I was experiencing this.
Mm-hmm.
And we would be here for weeks if I told you like all the details of all of these experiences I was having. But I'd say two or three that really stood out to me was I was almost being prepared for everything that was coming after. Certain things that I was wearing, like one minute I was in a military uniform as if I was like in the army. The next minute I was wearing something as if I was like a firefighter, some type of first responder. We would be flying in the actual combat style helicopters
Mm-hmm.
over different cities that were impacted in various ways while simultaneously entering into huge, ginormous sports arenas. Before the incident, I was huge into sports baseball, basketball, football. And so they flew me to sports arenas and I was being featured on billboards.
They say we all experience our own heaven, right? Would you feel like that
Right.
was the kind of peace, like something that a dream, like your heaven, a piece of your heaven might be.
Oh yeah, definitely. The peace that is felt throughout every millisecond of that experience was transformational. Like I've never felt peace like that before. Even going into what would be considered in the real world like dangerous situations, fear was completely absent. There was no need to fear because I constantly felt the holy presence there with me. And I knew that no matter what came up against me, who came before me, I knew that the Lord was with me throughout that entire journey.
You had other out of body experiences. There was one about your niece, correct?
Yes, so context to the story back September of 2013, my brother and sister-in-law were expecting. So this was her second pregnancy, and I was so excited. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna be an uncle. She carried full term, which was super awesome, and it was one of her last appointments before she actually was going to be induced. And we got some texts. We were sitting there waiting because, of course, we knew she was at the doctor. But there was one text that we got whenever we were on our way to the hospital to check on her that completely shattered my emotions. It was heartbreaking because that text told us the doctor didn't find a heartbeat and she was going to have to deliver, but of course, the baby was already gone. And so, worst absolute news we could get in that context. So, time went on. Of course, we had to do the burial and everything. Whenever you lose a loved one, you have to go through the whole process while you're still dealing with the whole grief of it all. And
Sure.
so that was just a real hard thing that so even going back to school was hard because that's all I could think about was like, oh, I was going to be an uncle and now we lost her. So it was tough in that time. But now getting back to the fact of these out of body experiences I was having after the incident, it was truly the highlight of my out of body experience whenever I was having a dream about my niece. Of course, we're both from Roswell,
Yeah.
and the cemetery around there. I had started walking through the cemetery, and as I glanced over, I seen my niece dancing around in her cute little white dress. Of course, by this time, she was already in those early toddler stages. She was already learning how to walk and everything. And she was just dancing around, so excited, happy. Like, literally, she was on top of the world. And I think my heart was glowing inside of me, and people could probably see it on the outside just because of how, like, amazing it was to see her happy and just at so much peace. So that was a huge, huge highlight of my experience during that time. And then, as I was mentioning
Okay.
earlier, the scenes just kept shifting, but a huge second highlight of this whole experience was in the scene. I was laying in a hospital bed and I could see everything around me. I met one specific person who I've never met before. And he came up to me. He said, "Hi, my name is Clayton. I'm your nurse. I'll be taking care of you today. Go ahead and get up and get in the wheelchair. I'll wheel you outside. That way you can get some fresh air." And
Mm.
so I knew exactly what he looked like. Of course, I knew his name. And whenever he wheeled me outside, that was a whole new experience within itself, right? Because here on Earth, you go outside and you see the sun everywhere, except on the cloudy days, right? But even through the clouds, even through that darkness, you could still
Yeah.
see the light. But in this particular instance, whenever he wheeled me outside, it was like a sunrise you have never seen before. It was almost like you were having a glimpse into what heaven looked like by the way the sunrise looked. And just so many experiences, like I mentioned, that
Hmm.
literally lit up my soul. And those were definitely two that were a big highlight of that entire
So is
experience.
this, so I'm going back to your niece. So your niece, correct, she passed away at birth, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so you were seeing her out of body experience. You didn't realize you were deceased, but at this time, you're seeing her in her toddler years. So you knew, you were very much aware that even though she died as a baby, you knew that this was your niece as a toddler, correct?
Exactly.
That's awesome. And then you saw your nurse, but you didn't know that you were seeing your nurse. You just, in your out of body experience, you're seeing this nurse, this guy nurse's name, but you, at this point, you're not awake. You're still deceased.
Right, exactly.
Okay. So then obviously you're in the hospital, they brought you back, and then at this point I see that you were in a coma for 2 weeks. You're having these amazing out of body experiences. And then you awake. What's the first thing that you felt when you were awake? What did you see when you're awake? Did you feel any pain? Who was the first person you asked for? Who was the first person you saw when you had awakened?
Like you said, we're 2 weeks into being sedated in that medically induced coma, and
Okay, medically induced.
uh,
Okay.
I wake up, and of course, I see absolutely nothing, completely blind in both eyes,
Oh.
and all I saw was darkness. And so naturally, my instinct was thinking, why am I not scared? Because in the past, I've been scared of the dark, like the darkness, no thank you. But in
Yeah.
this instance, I just felt still at peace. I mean, it was crazy to think, but I'm like, I'm literally in the dark, can see nothing, and all I feel is peace. And I tried to talk, but couldn't because I noticed there was something in my throat, which, being that I was
Mm.
just coming out of sedation, they still had the tube down my throat, helping me breathe and whatnot, as well as a feeding tube. And I could hear a little bit of what they were saying. I was trying to comprehend what was going on around me. And I could tell that they were like, okay, he's awake. It's time to take out the tubes. So they
Mhm.
did their thing really quick, took him out, and tried to talk, but yet again couldn't because at this point I haven't consumed any type of fluids or anything naturally, right? It's all been through tubes and IVs and who knows what else. And so my throat was really dry. And this is when they started trying to introduce water through my mouth again and everything like that. And so thankfully, after I got a little bit of water into my system, I was able to start talking. And that's whenever I had to ask them to quiet down. Out of all the
Oh.
things, I had to ask them to quiet down because, interestingly enough, we have our five senses until we don't. And in this instance, like I didn't have my sight anymore. And so the other four senses were like incredibly enhanced. And so any type of bump, I would not only bruise, but I felt the pain significantly compared to what I used to. Anytime someone would talk to me, I would be like, "Can you whisper?" Because of the
Yeah.
fact that my hearing was extraordinary. I could taste everything. I swear I could taste the air.
Wow.
And so like all of these different things. And after they noticed, okay, he's on a good track, he's awake, he's able to drink, I would cough up a little bit. Just the fact that I hadn't consumed anything for now 2 weeks. And so it was like completely entering a new way of life.
Mhm.
So I asked them to play some music because I'm always listening to music.
Did you ask for your mom and or anything? Who was the first person you asked for?
So I did ask, where am I? Who all is here? I knew that I was in the hospital of some sort. I just didn't know like how long I've been there or what exactly got me there. And so my brother, my sister, and my mom were all talking to me simultaneously. They're like, "Yeah, we're all here." Then my brother had actually asked my family after a certain little bit of time had passed. He asked them if they could step out just to give me the mental space.
So did you
So
at
he
this
asked
point know
me,
you were shot? So you're waking up, you're having to get used to your senses you can't see. Your other four senses were you're very hypersensitive with all the other four senses. Who's the first person you asked for at this point? Because now you're aware you're talking to your mom and your siblings, but did you realize you're talking to them? Did you ask for in particular person, number one? And number two, when did you find out why you were in the hospital and what was your reaction?
yeah, so I could hear all of their voices as they were telling me like who all was there in the room with me. And my brother, as he was transitioning to that phase of helping me understand where in the world I was, he had pretty much cleared the room, just giving me that
Yeah,
brain
mental.
space to think in the
Mm-hmm.
exactly. Thankfully, I was already in the headspace of like, okay, I know who's here. I'm comfortable because this is my family. I've been blessed with who all makes up my family. I
Mm-hmm.
was comfortable and I knew no matter where I was safe. And so as he started to ask me questions, the first thing that he asked me was, do you know what happened to you? My brain starts going wild, trying to think, okay, the very last thing I remember before I entered this dream spiritual phase was a loud ringing. Everybody was screaming. I was trying to help people. And then that's all I remember. And he was like, yeah, but do you know like what happened to you? And I told him, I like the school blew up. There was a lot of people injured and I didn't know how to help. And he was like, no, you were shot. And so then my brain goes straight to thinking like, okay, yeah, the context of it all that makes sense. But now who did it? Why did they do it? And so it's like our brains were reciprocating off of one another because as soon as I would
Mm-hmm.
think something, he would ask me like, "Do you know who did it?" And so I was like, "No, I didn't see anything. I don't know what happened exactly."
Mm-hmm.
And that's whenever he told me the first name of the person who did it. And as soon as he told me that, my brain started kind of going into a panic because I'm thinking, I know a lot of people with that name. Who in the world could it
Oh,
be? There's no way it could be that guy. No way it could be that
yeah.
guy. Anybody I knew with that name, there was no way. Like they would never do something like that. And then he said the last name, and my heart sunk into my stomach. Out of all the people I knew with that name, that's the absolute last person I would have thought. Uh, and I asked him why. What in the world brought him to that? And he's like, I don't know. They're still investigating the case. They have no idea what in the world happened. And he even asked me, he said, I know you're nothing like that, but just for the sake of saying it out loud, were you ever mean to this kid? Did you ever do anything to him? And of course, no, right? I mean, never talked down to this kid, never bullied this kid. Everything that I knew about this guy was like we had this English class together, and he and I were always partnered up in that class. He was awesome, sweetest kid you could meet, and somebody who you'd expect to achieve like the greatest things that one could achieve in this world. He just had that type of element to him. And so conversations continued just about all of our curiosities. And then, of course, the rest of my family came back in and we just really moved forward from that point because they knew that I knew the most that I could know about what happened. And at that point, we were just ready to enter the full phase of healing.
So were you emotional, Nathaniel?
I was not. I didn't have any feelings of complete sadness or really anything negative at that particular point in time, just because I was still transitioning out of that space where I felt all that peace and I knew that like everything, literally everything was okay within me in like a spiritual sense. I knew I was injured physically and I didn't know to what extent. I just knew that my body and my mind were at peace and nothing was going to ruin that for me.
How long were you in the hospital?
From the date that it happened, I was actually at UMC here in Lubbock for approximately 2.5 to 3 weeks, closer to 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And then after the physicians understood, like, okay, his body is stable, he is healing still, but like he's able to live out of the
Mm-hmm.
confines of these four walls. That's when they actually transferred me to a rehab center in Dallas, Texas, where I spent about another week and a half or two before getting to return home.
So Nathaniel, what injuries did you sustain through this? What happened? I know we're going through your story, but what injuries did you sustain?
With the 20 gauge bird shotgun, each time the trigger's pulled, it releases 1,000 pellets per shot at minimum. And being that I was in such close proximity, these 1,000+ pellets hit me from the top of my head down to my waist. So I had
Mm-hmm.
thousands of pellet fragments that had entered my body, which then comes the injuries, right? I had to have at minimum 10 plus surgeries. I had what they term a craniotomy, where they extract a large portion of my skull, being that my brain was bleeding, due to the fact that one of the pellets had actually shot through the center of my brain, which caused significant brain swelling. We didn't want my brain to explode inside of my head. Both of my eyes were impacted, so my left eye in particular, the doctors told me we're going to be honest, we had no hope for that eye, but we wanted to give you the opportunity, since you were so young, to have possible vision in that eye with future medical advancements. So they just pieced together my left eye as much as they could and left it at that. My right eye, they were able to repair it to the greatest capacity that they could in that moment, but sadly in that time frame they weren't able to restore my vision in my right eye. I did have an exploratory surgery where they had to cut from the lower part of my chest all the way down to my waist to examine if there were any type of vital organs injured and still bleeding. So they did discover through there that my heart was nicked, so I was having some internal bleeding from my heart, in addition to various other organs in there, like liver, kidney, doing as much repair as they could there. Yeah, so all the way from my brain, both my eyes, my heart, and just the overall general midsection, tons of repairs. And by that, of course, just stitching up anywhere and everywhere they could with the 1,000+ pellets that are still in my body.
So, Nathaniel, what long-term chronic conditions do you have from your injuries? I knew that you had said you liked playing baseball. I remember watching you being a kid playing ball with my eldest son. What long-term effects do you have from your injuries? What can you not do now?
So, from an overall life aspect, sports was my big thing whenever I was younger. Baseball, basketball, football. As soon as one season would end, the next one would start. And so that was some of the hardest news to find out after the shooting, was the fact that I couldn't play sports anymore. I always had that
Mm-hmm.
little spark in my mind back then that if I can get as good as possible in just one of these sports, because I loved all three of them, there was a
Yeah.
possibility that I could get college scholarships and maybe one day even go pro. And so that was one tough thing to figure out. But even from a physical element, I was completely blind for about a month after the shooting, up until they were able to restore very moderate to very low vision in my right eye. And of course, this happened while I was still there in rehab in Dallas, that I was able to get that surgery and thankfully was successful. Of course, still to this day, completely blind in my left eye. And then, really, the only lasting physical thing on top of that would be the fact that I have lead poisoning now. So I still have over 1,000 lead pellets throughout my body that were safer to just leave there, which of course brought on the lead poisoning. So now, after these thankful many years of healing, I get my blood drawn once a year now, just to make sure my lead levels haven't gone up, and then if so, treat that accordingly.
So you dealt with a lot of emotional trauma. Well, it seems like a lot of things that you used to be able to do physically, you were at this time now limited and still are. I know you're a Christian man, correct?
Exactly.
Okay. So at the time, would you say you were a Christian but a strong Christian because you were very young?
Right. Back in that time before the incident, I was, of course, 12. So I was entering that phase of like preteen.
Mm-hmm.
I would experience some type of faith elements. Like ever since I could think, I always had that sense of faith in God. And I knew that God is my savior. Like that was clear. But growing up, we were quite spotty, I guess you would say, in attending church.
Would you
And
say you're lukewarm? Like
right.
lukewarm
Oh yeah.
Christian? Yeah. Okay.
Like I knew who God was. I knew he was my God. I just
You're acquainted
didn't
with him.
live in that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Afterwards, did your faith become stronger right away?
Without a doubt. I mean, as soon as I woke up in the hospital, I knew in that moment I'm awake right now because of God. Nothing else could explain why I felt so much at peace. And
Mm-hmm.
despite not being able to see and all of these other factors that were impacting me negatively according to the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
I knew that I was there because God put me there and nothing else could tell me otherwise.
With that being said, would you say that did you emotionally and spiritually, did you struggle at all? Did you have any moments of anger? Did you go through any episodes of like PTSD? When you were places, did you hear noises and think it was a gunshot? I mean, you didn't realize you were shot, but were you afraid of guns? So I'm going to go through a list and you can answer them. Were you afraid of guns? Were you diagnosed with anything? Did you get any type of counseling? Did you get any professional counseling? Did you go through anything emotionally and spiritually? Any hate towards this young man that shot you at all, at any time?
That's a really great question because there's so many things that go in to where both my mind and my heart were at throughout this duration of
Mm-hmm.
time.
Mm-hmm.
When you talk about like any type of anger or hatred towards the shooter, or even spiritually, any anger with God, like why? Why God? Why me? That type of thought. Still in the hospital, whenever my brother was asking me those questions, that was actually one thing he asked me. Like, do you hate him? Are you mad at him? And like I mentioned, I felt peace. I knew God
Mm-hmm.
was there with me.
So even later down the road?
Guardian angels. Exactly. Oh yeah. And anytime they would ask me that, like, are you serious? You're not mad or even frustrated? And my thing was no. And every time they would ask, why not? My thing was, God forgives. Why shouldn't we?
Got you.
Like,
That's powerful.
I know we could do the worst things in the world, and there is only one thing that God will not forgive. And I know that this is not one of those things. So, yeah, that was my heart the whole entire time. God forgives me for everything that I've done in the past. Why shouldn't
Mm-hmm.
I forgive him?
Got you. So you didn't receive any type of counseling or nothing. You developed a closer relationship with God automatically. You felt forgiveness and no hatred or anything, correct?
Exactly.
So you felt love for this young man, pity. What did you feel? Understanding?
My main thing was confusion. Of course, in the beginning, right, we are like, why did he do it? Yes, I forgive him. I'm not mad, angry, hatred, like none of that. But I'm just curious as to why he did this. And so,
Mm-hmm.
whenever we concluded with the court hearing and whatnot and found out what exactly the motive was behind it, my thought was like, okay, now I understand why he did it. But now I'm wondering, was there not another way that he could have solved this without trying to kill? Without taking somebody's life, how else could he have solved this problem that he was having,
Yes.
Because with him, understandably, this is a whole mental battle and spiritual battle alike. He probably had these thoughts running through his head like, these people hate me, they're always making fun of me, or of course that one specific person he was targeting, right? Like, this person hates me, always picking on me, they're making my life awful. I want them to feel the pain that I'm feeling. So all these thoughts running through his head on top of the enemy, like the
Mm-hmm.
devil's going to be right there tapping on all of our shoulders, trying
Mm-hmm.
to get us to do the exact opposite of what God wants us to
Right.
do. And so spiritually, mentally, and possibly even physically, he was facing these battles. And
Yeah.
so that's where I was trying to gain better understanding there.
Okay. So once you understood his side and why he did it, when you found out that he had reached to his parents, reached out to the school, did you feel like the student bullying him had some accountability? Did you feel any anger towards that student and the school and the parents? The bully, obviously, he did some type of damage to this young man. to make him feel in a place of where he felt he had no other way but to send a message. Did you feel like the parents and the school hold accountability?
Oh yeah. My goal in the future is to, of course, be a parent, but even to this day, I'm
Yeah.
not a parent. So it's tough to gauge that part. Yet, with the context of it at that time, and even now to this day, you realize that all the problems always start at home. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's where a lot of it roots from because home is supposed to be, like, say, in a perfect world, right? We're never going to be in a perfect world, but in a perfect world,
Mm-hmm.
home is a place where you can go feel safe and know that you have somebody to talk to. And so whenever I was thinking, okay, now we know that this guy told his parents, and they would reply with things like, oh, you're fine. Don't worry about it. Stop being a baby. Like things like
So
that, you
they
know?
didn't go to the school? The
No, no,
parents didn't go to the school? It was him that went
right.
to the school?
Exactly. The shooter said this during the hearing too. He would tell his parents all the time, this person, the specific person is picking on me. I'm sick of it during dinner or whenever else. And they would always just brush it off. So his next step was, well, if they're not going to do anything about it, I guess I better go tell the principal. Which that's when we later found out too in the court hearing. He claimed he told the principal and some of the other admin there at the school, but they had actually found that that was false. There were no recorded reports, at least on record, right?
They
There was no
denied it.
record of him reporting, which that's where we get into some hearsay and all
We
the
don't
other
know.
crazy
Yeah.
court terminology. So he very well could have told the principal, or maybe he never did and just right away took it upon himself. Uh,
Hmm. Did the
but
parents say
then
that he did talk to them about it?
they were in what seemed to be like a state of denial as well.
Hmm.
Kind of like,
Okay.
no, we never heard anything in that type of state, which is understandable, especially whenever you're in a court.
Well,
Uh,
unless he's being dishonest. I mean, someone's being
yeah,
dishonest. So either this young man wanted to not hold the accountability by, in his mind, he was reaching out. If the parents said he did not reach out and the school administration said he stated he did not reach out, then maybe this young man was being dishonest. Now,
right,
if the parents would have said, yes, he did tell us, but we failed him, if no one holds accountability, then that's your problem because actions dictate leadership, correct?
exactly.
So we don't know if this young man was being honest. Okay, so we have that answer there. Nathaniel, you forgave this child, this young man right away. What is what happened to him? What did the court do to him? What was his sentencing? Did he get in trouble? What happened to him? And what happened to his family?
That's where it gets a little tricky because of his age. That was the main
Mm-hmm.
thing that was really dictating a lot of the conversation within the
Mm-hmm.
courtroom. They knew that at the time of the shooting, he was 12 years old. And in the state of New Mexico, at least at the time, anybody under the age of 13 could not be tried as an adult, which meant for him that despite the fact that this was multiple things, this was battery with a deadly weapon, this
Mm-hmm.
was premeditated murder, taking a firearm onto school grounds, and some of those charges did stick. But the one thing that they couldn't charge him for was the fact that it was premeditated murder. And so, maximum sentence they were able to give him due to his age at the time of the incident was until the age of 21 with the opportunity of parole at the age of 18.
So where's he at now?
He was actually released at the age of 21 back whenever we had got to that point where he did turn 18. My family and I, as well as the other victim's family and herself, we were all able to go to Las Cruces where we actually had to testify again as to why he should serve out the remainder of his sentence to the
Mm.
age of 21. Of course, judge did decide to push that forward, served until the age of 21, and now, as of 2022, he was released completely free record as if nothing ever happened. And now he's living out in the world somewhere.
Is he in Roswell? Do you know where he's at?
To my awareness, I believe he's in the proximity, but I don't believe he's directly in town.
Hmm. Okay. Does that make you feel nervous, scared, or anything? I mean, I know you're a man of faith and you're very big on that faith and professing it. But do you feel uneasy at all? Do you feel, if you're not fearful for yourself, are you fearful for others? Because he's an adult now. If he's not healed and it's possibility like maybe mental disorder or mental illness, are you in fear of other people's lives?
Definitely. There's a couple of different stances I have on that element of my fear, aside from the fact, or really the fact of where it's being directed. I personally don't have any fear for like myself or my family just because of the fact that I know both like with evidence and deep down in my heart that myself nor my family ever did anything to him or his family that would
Mm-hmm.
cause any necessary motive for him to come back and harm us in any way. And so, like, I don't have any fear in that aspect. My thing is more so a concern for his family in addition to the initial target that he had back in
Mm,
2014, right? Like you said, he's an adult now. He can
yeah.
purchase
He has a clean
firearms.
record.
Exactly. Oh, yeah.
Uh,
Purchase firearms under his own free will and make whatever decisions he so pleases, just like he
mhm,
did in the past. So that's
right.
my main concern is his family, because if it's true that they never listened to him, could he want to harm them? And the main concern is for that initial target because this kid was smart. Like I say that over and over again because he is smart. And so, for all we know, through all the counseling he went through while in custody, whatever he experienced to help him heal, he could have fooled them all. I really
Hmm.
do hope and pray that he healed inside and out. But he is so smart that he could have very well fooled them into making them think he was okay and ready for release. And the whole time, these past 11 years, he's been planning to carry out something even worse for that initial target. That's my concern.
Got you. Going forward, do you have any contact with his family, like his parents, siblings, or anything?
I love that you asked that particular question because quite recently, I guess maybe from a healing perspective or maybe from just an overall goodwill perspective,
Mm-hmm.
I had decided to reach out to his mom just because I was curious of a couple things and wanted to give her clarity too. So my instinct was like, let her know that you have forgiven all of them. Hold
Mm-hmm.
no grudge towards any of them for any reason. Just like anybody else, we all need to talk to somebody. If I can ever be of that type of willpower for them to come and speak to me, please do. My messages are open always. And then the other thing I wanted to clarify was like, how is he doing now that he's released? I can only imagine. Granted, yes, he committed the crime, nearly ended my life, impacted many others to who knows what extent, because
Mm-hmm.
hundreds of other students witnessed this. There
Yeah.
was another student who was also physically impacted. And so I understand that. But at the same time, all of his teenage years were spent incarcerated.
Yeah, that's
So,
sad.
like, what is it like now that he has this free will to go and do whatever he wants? Is he
Mm-hmm.
mentally okay with that?
Yeah.
We shared some great common ground in that element. And I told her, like, if he ever wants to meet up one of these days, just to have a conversation, or I told her, like, I'm writing a book, maybe starting a podcast in the future, which we're here now. So I'm loving that. But if we can ever have that conversation, if he's comfortable doing that, please let him know that I am willing to do that.
And you haven't heard nothing back from the mother or him since that conversation?
No, we haven't conversated much, if at all, since then. But she did, of course, let me know that she would let him know. And if we ever do
Mm-hmm.
get to that point, which I believe is possible, then of course, who knows what we can make happen. Maybe he even joins this movement that we can push on together. I mean, anything's possible.
Yes. Well, Nathaniel, it has been a pleasure. All of us podcasts, wow. Such a powerful title. I think it's very fitting. Moving forward, what are your plans? What are you doing right now as of work? What things are you doing with life right now? What are your goals? What are your dreams? And importantly, what do you want to accomplish with this podcast? I know you gave a brief description, explanation at the beginning of your podcast, but moving forward, what do you want to accomplish? What are some things that you're doing to reach out to the world, to give the world a message? What do you want to accomplish?
Yes, so there are so many things that go into my goals, especially with this mission. Like, the mission is to ultimately bring as many people together, all based on faith, and see
Mm-hmm.
what we can do together in order to bring an end to gun violence all across America. That is the mission right there. There's so many goals that I've developed that go into accomplishing that mission. And I mean, just a couple of years ago, I started going really big on the initial goal of sharing my story with the world, whether it be through the occasional social media content. But my thing was like, I want to travel to schools and churches and businesses, organizations, etc., to share my story while giving insight as to what they can do to not only improve the ways that schools, churches, other entities operate in order to prevent something like a mass shooting, but to internally develop themselves to where they understand they belong there and they are capable of any great things that they put their mind to. That's what my goal is,
Mm-hmm.
speaking to various crowds. And so, as I've been through this journey of now speaking to various places and all these great audiences, I've noticed that there's more that I can do. There's more that I can do as opposed to just speaking, because I love speaking to crowds. And that's a big part of what I'm called to do. But then as I realized there's more that I can do, this is when I got into the idea of like, okay, I need to write a book. I could start a podcast. I need to just start developing my own organization. That way, when yes, I can go still speak at places, but I want to be able to
Mm-hmm.
leave each school, each church, whatever campus with action plans that they can continuously take action on years and
Mm-hmm.
years and years after I speak there. And so that's
Gotcha.
what's brought me to develop and write my book, now this podcast that we're launching, and
And what's your
my
book
student
called?
organization. The book is called
Okay.
In the Blink of an Eye.
Okay. Make sure you guys get out there and buy this book in the blink of an eye, okay? Okay. Back to you, Nathaniel. Sorry.
All good. Great stuff. Great stuff. But yeah, so those are all of my goals that I've developed this far. And I can honestly say, even 5 years from now, 10 years from now, we're only getting started.
That's awesome, Nathaniel. Wow, what a true testament of faith. I mean, if the world could have such a forgiving heart, most people don't. A lot of people go through tragedy and they end up becoming bitter and they end up becoming as broken as the person who hurt them, who harmed them. So I'm going to bring up something. So you have these different things that you want to do. You have the book that was recently published in the blink of an eye. You're working on another book, correct?
Correct.
And then also you're doing this podcast, All of Us podcasts, and you are part of Turning Point, right?
Yes, I have recently got involved with Turning Point, especially with hearing the news of their president and co founder. I mean, that was huge. My biggest inspiration has been Turning Point from probably the past year that I've even had the idea of starting my own organization. Turning Point has been the place where I always seeked refuge, uh,
Mm-hmm.
for the sake of understanding, like, Charlie Kirk has built a literal empire all for the students.
Mm-hmm.
If I could have that same type of impact, even in the slightest way. Like,
Yeah,
imagine what could be possible in the positive changes we could bring to, of
exactly.
course, end gun violence, right?
Mm,
So that's been huge. And so very, very big into Turning Point USA.
that's awesome, Nathaniel. I'm sure the viewers want to know, because of what happened, are you against guns? Are you one of those that's like degun every American, let's take all the guns away? Are you for guns still?
That's something that's so debatable, especially whenever you get into different environments. You go to a state like I live here in Texas now. You get into a
Mm-hmm.
state like Texas, and that's a whole different type of conversation, even from
Mm-hmm.
what you would have in the state right next to us, our home state, New
Yeah.
Mexico.
Yeah, for sure.
Because it's a very political
Big difference.
conversation too. Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely not against people owning guns for the right reasons, right? Highly respect people who utilize them for hunting. They go
Mm-hmm.
out, that's like a family tradition of theirs. Completely respect that. And these are often the people also who have their weapons stored in a safe,
Mm-hmm.
as all gun owners should. It's just a safety thing because
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen up until this day, there's people that have guns within their houses that aren't stored safely and they accidentally misfire. And then all of a sudden, boom, one
Yeah.
of their family members is dead. Completely unintentional, right? But if they had stored it safely, that could have been a whole
Mm-hmm.
different story. And so I'm very pro Second Amendment, but I do believe with stricter gun laws in various elements, there's a way that we can make the Second Amendment
Mm-hmm.
not so unsafe.
Got you. Got you, Nathaniel.
Yeah.
Well, you guys, you heard it here with us, live with Nathaniel Tavarez on All of Us podcast. Please make sure you stay tuned and watch out for his episodes. I'm sure he will post more information on that. Again, my name is Melissa Lujan. I am the actual founder of Dear Battered World podcast, and please stay tuned for my episodes that will be coming out. I do have some thought here. Nathaniel has shown us what true forgiveness is. He has shown us what the love of God is. This is a young man who went through a tragedy, a school shooting, and it could have taken his life. And it did, but he did come back to us. He experienced, I believe, the supernatural side of things, and he is here today to tell his story. Nathaniel is the epitome of strength, the epitome of forgiveness and love that we wish that this whole world would show. I believe that if America and the whole world would show a little bit of his grace like Jesus Christ, and people, men of God and women of God like Nathaniel, this world would definitely be a better place. Through stories, through these podcasts, we share the things that we have been through, and we can choose to stay a victim and become bitter, or we can choose to gain strength and reach out to others that are going through so many things in life to try and prevent these future things from happening. Nathaniel was shot and injured. Charlie Kirk was recently shot, and unfortunately, he lost his life. We ask that those of you out there that are going through anything, especially rejection, because bullying, anything that you're going through, the young man that took Charlie Kirk's life obviously felt some type of rejection. He felt like he was being attacked for his personal beliefs, even though he was raised in a conservative family. Does not mean he's not hurting. We're not on the side of Republican or Democrats, guys. This is a spiritual battle. This is an issue, a heart issue, not a gun issue. I am afraid of guns because of my past of domestic violence, things that I went through. But I am pro carrying. But I believe that if we can do things like metal detectors and security across the globe in all schools and all stores, malls, churches, I believe that we can prevent some tragedies from unfolding. All events to have the proper security. I believe those that want to own a gun or buy a gun or carry a gun should go through some type of mental evaluation. So we're not saying for people not to carry guns. We're saying for people to be mentally evaluated. So if I want a gun, I need a mental evaluation. I'm not going to get offended by that. I believe that people should be able and have the rights to carry guns, but I believe that we can prevent things by doing mental evaluations, mental screenings, basically. Look at people's social medias and seeing what they're posting. You all can get mad at there and say, hey, this is our privacy. You're invading our privacy. Well, guess what, guys? We have a couple of choices to make. Either get our guns taken away, which no one wants that to happen, or make some safety measures and precautions, take those precautions and safety measures so that way we don't take guns away from every American. So there are things that we can do to make people more safe. People have difference of opinion, and it's unfortunate that people are killing each other over difference of opinions, difference beliefs and religions and faith, and it's sad. But I don't believe those are reasons to take a life. I don't believe that that young man, regardless of what he was going through, should have went into Berrendo in 2014 and shoot two innocent people. I don't think he should have killed the bully either or went after the bully. There are things that need to be screenings in every school. Maybe counselors should pull out every student and screen them or do tests on them and screen them just to make sure that no one is hurting. Send paperwork and homework for the parents to fill out in order for the child to get a grade. And that would be for the parent to fill out a mental evaluation. Have you talked to your child this week about X, Y, and Z? These are things that we can do together to take measures to prevent these tragedies from happening. I don't think that, unfortunately, we can prevent every tragedy from unfolding, but we can decrease these numbers significantly. People of the world and viewers right now of All of Us podcast, it has been a pleasure to interview Nathaniel Tavarez, such a great young man, a bold and just a strong young man, a man that to me is a hero. Why is he a hero? He survived his situation, and he still loves Jesus, and he still has hope in others and wants to spread the gospel and spread the story of survival and love no matter what he went through. We can choose to survive our situations and be stuck in that situation and become ugly and become the next active shooter out there, or we can become the next Charlie Kirk. Those of you who did not like Charlie Kirk, okay, please put aside that for a minute, for a moment, and understand that you may be struggling with something right now. We're not here to take sides or anything like that. We have love for Charlie Kirk, and I believe that I am a voice for him, a continued voice, and I believe Nathaniel is as well. But those of you that do not like him, I ask right now, search your heart and soul and ask, is Charlie Kirk the problem? Or is there something wrong here and here? What's going on? What can you do to help yourself out? Guys, seek counseling. Seek help. Pray. And if you're not a person of the faith, then seek mental help. Get counseling, because I promise you, the person that you're going after and you're wanting to attack, they're not the problem. It's something within you. We have to hold accountability. You guys are going to say, well, that person deserved to die, or that person deserved it because he said this or she said this to hurt my feelings. Guess what? Then what is wrong with you if you're willing to hurt somebody over your differences of opinions or something that you feel within? To me, that is an emotional problem that you need to get right. That is a heart problem. You guys, thank you so much for sharing this time with us. Nathaniel, we wish you the best of luck. Thank you so much for allowing me here on this podcast to interview you. Is there anything you'd like to add before we say goodbye to our viewers?
Yes. Well, first off, thank you, Melissa, for taking the time to come and interview me. That way we can kick off this podcast. This is going to be huge. Like, I can't wait to see what we do here with the All of Us podcast and what you do with your podcast. Like, literally,
Thank you.
we are the next generation of change makers, and it's going to be huge. So, super excited to see what we do there. It's great that we share the same very parallel mission. All of what
Mm-hmm.
we do is rooted on faith, and we're trying to make that difference to where in the future, nobody has to experience such things as domestic violence ever again. That is the ultimate goal, right? And
Mm-hmm.
similarly, with what I'm doing here, never want to see anybody having to experience gun violence ever again. So
Yes.
one day we will be able to make that happen. So super excited to see that. As we close this out, I do have to say Melissa is going to have her incredible episode that she is also launching for her podcast coming up very, very soon. So please be sure to head over to that. Her podcast you can find called Dear Battered World. So super excited to see where Melissa takes that, and I'll also have the opportunity to interview her there, which will be super awesome. See a glimpse into her story. Plus, both of us are book authors now, which is so crazy. You can find both her co author book and her new book that was just released titled Your Destiny Determines Your Warfare. So please go check that out. My book is also on Amazon in the blink of an eye. So please go purchase your own copies of our books today, and we can't wait to share more of all of our missions with all of you. Again, thank you all so much for tuning in with me and Melissa on this very first episode of the All of Us podcast. My hope in sharing my story is that it reminds you that even in the darkest moments, there's always going to be a way forward, and that together we can create real solutions to end gun violence in our schools and communities. Thank you again. Have a great one. God bless.